Relentless in the war, the legions in our hearts, shed waters in our balls. The spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest. The cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded. The teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Trembling in the haze with the semblance of a blaze. With gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight. Impervious to light, this vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded. The teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. The world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Would you like to be more present with your loved ones, with your work, with yourself? Would you like to be more focused? Would you like to be more in the zone, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Ike. Welcome to we talk about being better and doing better, with a strong emphasis on doing. And what are we doing today? So what are we doing today? Well, we're in a light mood, so we're going to have a light conversation to introduce the section how to develop certain qualities and certain powers. The power of being present. How? Shout out to D-Rock in the house, and thank you very much. He said, nice track. Short copy, Red sings the blues, ladies and gentlemen. Soul Provider speaks. Nice little play of The Devil May Cry, I believe, earlier today on the Soul Provider Speaks. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining this light snack of a conversation. So, we made a 4-part series on meditation before. It's called Why You Should Meditate. We talked about the particular capacities that you are developing. Concentration, sensory clarity, equanimity. We talked about how concentration undergirds all physical or mental activities, whether you are shooting a free throw or sniping someone or trying to understand calculus. Concentration is the foundation of all those things. We also talked about the combination of concentration and relaxation or equanimity, which is being in the zone. We talked about why. Now we're going to start a series on how. Let's get more practical. Let's get down to how. And the first part of this series is about what the landscape is. What are the possibilities? What are the choices, ladies and gentlemen? And let me know how the microphone sounds, by the way, since this is still a new microphone testing process. Let me know if it's too loud, too low. I'm going to be putting padding in the room later on, so that will definitely help the sound. But you audiophiles out there and everyone else in the chat, feel free to leave a comment. In that regard, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Red sings the blues and short copy say that it is fine. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, there's this thing called cardiovascular health or your cardiovascular system, okay? It is something that needs to be exercised, all right? It's about your heart and the blood vessels and also the respiratory system, which goes hand in hand with it. Your lungs, taking in that oxygen, the blood transporting the oxygen through your body and so on and so forth. And the heart pumping the blood. Yeah, your cardiovascular system. You need to do this thing called cardio, which we shorten it down to. And there are these forms of exercises. It's like, okay, well, what are my choices? I could either play games or run or swim or cycle or. And what is the commonality between all these things? Okay. That is the analogy that we're creating here for the developing of these other capacities, which we've talked about, which is the capacity to be present. We're going to create an analogy with the cardiovascular system and the kinds of exercises that you should do in order to maintain, upkeep, develop, use, right? So that's the landscape that we're trying to paint for these other capacities: concentration, sensory clarity, equanimity, the tools by which we master our subjective consciousness, being present. All right. And checking for you said no one wanted to study calculus with me. So, Soul Provider says Calc 1 sucked. Calc 2 and 3 were easier. Yeah, you got to pick the calc that you like will tell you a lot about you. And this is nerd talk over here. Calc nerd talk. But this is the landscape that we're talking about today. Okay, how do you meditate? Okay, what is the landscape? What are my options? What can I do? Because some people like to run, some people like to play tennis, some people like to play basketball, some people like to play golf to work their cardiovascular system, to develop these particular capacities. Okay? If we can say that this capacity for concentration, sensory clarity, equanimity, the ability to be present is similar, because it is, to the other capacities such as your cardiovascular, the stamina, and so on and so forth, respiratory and cardiovascular health, then we should have a landscape from which we can choose what things am I talented at, what things do I try to avoid. I don't like running, but I'll cycle. I don't like tennis, but I'll play basketball. That kind of a thing is kind of what we're looking out for today. And we have, as usual, a hypothesis and hypothesis. I always cringe when I have to use the and for the H sounds, but I'll just keep it a hypothesis. Seems to be the closest. My apologies. As I said, we're in a light mood today, and I'm over here musing to myself live on air as we do. So why don't we go right ahead
and talk about what exactly it is this hypothesis is. All right. What are we going to explore? What are we going to say is the landscape? What are the options that we have? The video says how to meditate, part 1. The options. What are the options I have? All right. Aaron B, shout out to you joining us in the house. So, we've already stated that part of what we're going to do here is to compare the powers of being present, which have to do with your attention, which we could break down into concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity. That these things are analogous to, let's say, another set of capacities like cardiovascular strength, having stamina, okay, exercising your heart such that your heart and your lungs and the vascular system can work well together to keep you going at a particular task. Okay? We're going to look at these capacities from these capacities having to do with attention, that is, right? You know, the ability to be present. We're going to look at that as analogous to the cardiovascular system, and we're going to say, just like there are many options in the world of training your heart and your lungs, such as cycling, running, swimming, jogging, okay? Fast paced, heated yoga, basketball, tennis, golf, on and on and on, many aspects, many sides, emphasizing the use of certain particulars like, well, cycling is mainly about using your lower body. We're definitely using your heart and your lungs. Same thing with the other ones. So what we're saying here is this, okay? What we're saying is this. First thing that is important to note here is that the entirety of our biological system works on the use it or lose it proposition. In other words, you cannot just leave any particular capacity that you have. You can't leave it fallow and expect it not to come back and have negative ramifications. In other words, if you do not use your muscles, they will atrophy. You don't use your mind, it gets weaker. As a biological system, you actually need to expose your immune system, your bones, your muscle, your psyche to adversity, to randomness, to changes in the environment, to challenges in order for them to actually survive. Okay? So this is clear, right? We know this, but let me get a 1 in the chat if so far we are clear. We know that when it comes to your cardiovascular, your musculature, your skeleton, and all that, even your immune system, you need to challenge it. You need to expose it to hazards. You need to train it. You need to push it. Otherwise, it is actually unhealthy. So, is it crazy for me to say that if you do not exercise, challenge, and push your powers of attention, that you're actually hurting yourself? Is it crazy for me to say that? Will it be crazy for us to hypothesize this? That, hey, you can't just leave your left leg and the bones and the musculature and so on and so forth unused. It's going to atrophy, it's going to die. You're going to be in big trouble. Same thing here. You can't just leave the dashboard and control system, the command center of your attention, right? Your conscious attention, powers such as concentration, sensory clarity, equanimity. We call it being present. You can't just leave that and say, no, I'm not going to practice, develop, and challenge that and expect not to Leave yourself open to negative consequences. So basically, that is the first part of what we're saying. That is the first part of this journey down the how shall one meditate path. So, shout out to the native in the house. So, this is the basic sketch. This is the basic hypothesis. Okay. And it is written down below in the slide that I'm sharing. And I changed the color of the slide to this kind of green slash almost fuchsia, whatever, but it's easy on the eyes. For some nerds in the house may know of the engineering paper. Engineering paper is usually of this kind of a color because it's easy on the eyes while you're writing down all those endless formulas and drawing those circuits and whatnot. So shout out to engineering paper here, holding it down in the slide. So the question is, what are the different modes, okay, of exercise? Okay, what are the different ways of exercising our ability to stay present? Since now we have kind of seeing that the analogy of cardiovascular and also these capacities holds up. Watch the Why Should You Meditate series. We went through 4 episodes elaborating upon concentration, which is 1 episode, sensory clarity, another episode, equanimity, another episode, and then space for freedom. We went through this whole presence thing, elucidating upon feeling in the body, image in the head, talk in the head, so on and so forth. Now we're down to how. And the first part of how is, well, let's look at the landscape. Let's understand we know what we're talking about here, right? And we're keeping it simple, practical, intuitive, and saying it is just like any other capacity. In other words, it operates on the use it or lose it proposition. So if you're going to develop your concentration, it's not a miracle. You just need to use it in a formal way, right? So if somebody says, hey, I got this other secret way of doing it that does not include actual exercising of any capacity. It's like somebody telling you, hey, drink this tea and you'll be able to play Beethoven's Ninth on the piano. Read this book and you'll be able to do it, or drink this tea and you'll be able to do it, or, hop around 7 times on one leg. No, we understand that you need to use your capacities formally in order to actually develop them. Okay? You want to develop your triceps and biceps, you're actually going to use it. You're not going to just read a book, imagine that you used it. All right? Does somebody understand me in the house tonight? Okay. Let's get an amen in the house if we're being clear as to what we are saying. Young Swift, always quick with the phrases. He says magic pill. No, there is no magic pill to anything, generally speaking. But one of the kinds of things that I just mentioned right now, which is that, okay, with any capacity, you need to use it in order to develop it. That's one thing. And then we are saying that we're keeping in the back of our mind that we are a use it or lose it proposition. And therefore, we must be using because, okay, that's me saying, oh, for your health, that part of the hypothesis is actually saying for your health, for your well-being, for your happiness, quality of life, you should be doing it, right? And then also we're saying, how do you do it? It's not like anything else. It is use it. And then you use it in formal ways. You pick up a dumbbell, a barbell, and you do these formal exercises, all kinds of formal exercises. You move this way, the range of motion, the reps, the this, the that, formally using those muscles to develop those muscles. So you want to develop concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity. It becomes a question of formally using these things in a systematic way in order to develop them, ladies and gentlemen. So what's the landscape? What's the possible landscape of ways? All right. What's analogous to bicycling versus running versus playing tennis versus hot yoga? Okay. What this allows us to do, by the way, the utility of starting out by saying, let's paint the landscape, because it gives us the idea, or at least the opportunity, the encouragement that there are many different ways. So if you're not into one particular lane, you can find the other lane more conducive. Not everybody likes to swim. Some people like to run. Some people cannot swim. Yes, you can admit it. We will not shame you. Some people don't like to run, so on and so forth. So, what are the options similar to the options in the development of these cardiovascular capacities? Well, this is not going to be a long one. But early on, as we go, I want it to be the case that everyone has an opportunity to jump in, because in these streams, some people have time at a particular segment and then they have to leave, so on and so forth. So, as we go along here, questions, comments, so on and so forth, hop in. We'll try to make it work. We will segment, bob, weave, and make it work. Prayer is meditation. Dr. Thunder in the house. So basically, we're saying, well, what are the options here? Okay, what are the options? What are the options? All right. So the options exist. And the options, by the way, we should restate to be careful here, consist in using formally your attention. It's not surprising, right? You want to develop your biceps, you're going to use your biceps. So, using formally your attention in different aspects of your being, you can start at different entry points. One entry point is the body, obviously, and then the other is the mind. We're going to separate it that way. We're going to further subdivide this and look at the different entry points and talk about the different kinds of exercises that you may or may not like. The remaining, the other parts in this series of how to meditate will be taking each and every one of these aspects one by one. So starting with the body side and then going all the way to the mind side, looking at how one can formally use their attention to develop the capacities of concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity. So, body, I'm going to say now, broad strokes before we get into a slight separation and then understanding of what kinds of things one can do, and thereby you can understand what you may like, not like, are prone to, things that you already do, things that you already have talent for. Because the same way you may be a naturally gifted runner or naturally gifted swimmer, or at least better relatively in one aspect than the other, same thing goes with these other capacities in terms of concentration, sensory clarity, the ability to relax, the ability to pay attention to certain aspects of yourself, so on and so forth. You also have different talents, predilections, and so on and so forth in that regard, right? But with the body, obviously, you have sensations and also you have perceptions. Okay. And we're going to break down a little bit how we can choose from this and the different exercises that are open to us to use our attention in a formal way on the body, sensations and perceptions. But a short interlude here, and we have a guest in the house. Could you please introduce yourself, sir?
Good day, sir. My name is Alonzo Hall, and I'm a great fan of yours.
We meet again.
Yes, we do. I saw that you would allow us to come up with questions or comments, and I wanted to come up with a comment that actually is germane to the topic in terms of meditation.
Okay.
I think, for example, the advice you gave me, I am using and attempting to, I guess, meditate with it in terms of increasing my concentration in terms of that self-improvement or that aspect.
I see
So
what you mean.
my question with meditation would be, knowing that it's multifold, is it a good idea to meditate on or with self-improvement in mind?
Okay. So I would say yes, in the sense that whichever way, whichever impetus, whichever particular drive gets you into the bus, into the train, just get in the train, if you know what I mean. People can go through and do all kinds of things, let's say, to make up for something, overcompensating, low self-esteem, so on and so on and so on and so on. These things are reasons or drives or motivations for people to sometimes do good things, right? So when they get on that train, they can later on abandon the reason why they got on it. But I would say 100% focusing on meditation with the idea that you're trying to improve something, there's no problem with that.
Awesome, thank you. Also, amazing outfit today. You gotta definitely hook me up with the stylist. Is that bespoke or?
Oh, this is a simple men's warehouse. Yeah, yeah, it is bespoke. I mean, there's levels of bespoke, right?
Touche, touche.
But definitely, you always want to get a tailored suit, a tailored jacket, tailored sports coat, even. And this is just a sports coat, because as it is fit over fashion. I'm not a expert, generally speaking, but if you get a good fit, okay, then it really doesn't matter certain other things. So, a fit that goes with the times, the modern fit, good. You get a fit that works for you, then the fashion, the branding, and so on and so forth doesn't really matter as much. So that'll be my tip on that one.
Definitely understood. Well, I appreciate that. That's definitely amazing. I think in this is just so I'm a little nervous at the moment. I guess sometimes you get caught in the minutia. Uh, However, and I'd love to cam up, but I'm not in a position to at the moment. I like to have more of a face-to-face conversation so that you can also see my mannerisms, because I notice that a lot of communication is nonverbal.
Of course, of course,
Uh,
of course. Yeah, but definitely no need to be nervous. And at some point, you can cam up when you're ready. And I'm going to put you on blast and ask you to replace the battery on your smoke detector. But yeah, that's the ongoing joke in these parts about. Anyways,
yeah, no, listen, I understand. I've been working on that for a little while. I need to fix it somehow. I changed the battery and everything. However, one thing that I would like to mention, I see you also speaking to a lot of sales and processes. And I think part of something that is methodical with meditating, sometimes you bring your client into that space. For example, when I sit with a client, I do financial services, and I tell them I help identify and protect one's lifestyle. So when I tell them that, it blows their mind. The long and short of it is I sell life insurance, but there's a whole host more that's involved in that. Go ahead.
The main thing that you mentioned there is bringing them into a space. And that, if I may elaborate upon that, is the be all and end all of, from a social standpoint, from a persuasion standpoint, from a, let's say social slash persuasion standpoint, that is the be all end all. In terms of what you're trying to do is you're trying to be present, right? That I keep using that because that's more of a simpler phrase for people to get into what the whole idea is, because we've all heard be present, you're not present, or be present for this, be present for that, or you're not, and we all know what it feels like to be talking to someone who is not present with us, right? So being present, which is basically that concentration and relaxation, being in the zone with the client, brings the client into the zone as well, because we know that there is that effect. If someone is nervous and you'll feel it. If someone is the other way as well, you'll feel it. And when they're in this other way, which is the relaxed way, the concentrated way, the present way, anybody is more amenable to being persuaded by the other person next to them at that stage. It is another way of saying, it's like lightly saying hypnosis, right? But being intelligent people, we understand that everything is within a spectrum, and it's all just one way or another a way of influencing and persuading people, right? Whichever level on the spectrum, whichever layer you're talking about. But I would like to hop on to the next caller, and then I'll go on in continuing of the president. Did you have anything else to say, Mr. Alonso?
No. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. You are welcome. Definitely come back and cam up next time. And sir, can you say something, please?
Hey, how's it going?
How is it going? You got the lion up.
Yeah, well, I constantly saw that there was no avatar, and it just looks kind of weird. So I thought, okay, let me put out the avatar. These things take time. I'm still getting used to all of this internet stuff. So there you go.
well, there you go. I noticed it. So that it must be something. It must be a step in the right direction, right?
Yeah,
it's already getting comments. It's making a splash out there. So, what you got for us today,
cool.
sir?
Yeah. So, why do you feel a meditation is such an important thing, such an important issue, personally? So much so that you feel that it's actually something that you have to share with all of your fans and listeners.
Because it is a fundamental skill that, however, is not emphasized enough in a systematic way in the West, let's say. And the West has many systematic ways of emphasizing external things, how to get control of matter, energy, your space, your time, organizations, economies, so on and so forth. But when it comes to your subjective consciousness, the fact that you have some kind of a operator interface in there somewhere, that there's better ways of handling yourself and worse ways of handling yourself. Okay. So how about a systematic approach towards that? Right. That's why if it seems to be so essential. It's like, why would you not have a systematic approach to that? Now it exists out there, but it's not emphasized and communicated in a way that is amenable to certain kinds of Western audiences. So I'm saying two things. Number one, I think it's very important. This other side of, in other words, the internal world, your subjective consciousness is very important, almost by definition, right? It's like, that is the thing that we care about the most, is our consciousness, right? So number one, it's important. There are capacities in there. We can enumerate them. We understand them, things like being present, concentration, so on and so forth. But that there is, generally speaking, not a Western-minded, Western-oriented, therefore systematic and almost scientific way of presenting it. So I am saying it because I think that I have an ability to say it that way, in a way that I don't see many people saying it. In other words, scientific, systematic, comparing with other systems, and and staying very practical and intuitive about it all. Sounds like I may be rambling, but I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Do you think that if a person, for example, has a lot of anxiety, deals with things in a very impulsive way, might even be angry, do you think meditation could now change that person's personality and ensure that they're a lot calmer, relaxed, and have greater equanimity as opposed to holding on to the, negative behaviors and traits that they did prior?
100%. I think that you are developing the capacity to observe the phenomenon going on within your mental space and your space of bodily sensations. When you become a better observer of that, it has less and less power over you. When you can watch something happen independently and see, it is by definition creating a space between yourself and the thing. And when I say yourself and the thing, I'm talking about you. You are both the thing. You are the feelings in your body and the images in your head, but you can also magically almost kind of separate yourself from it and watch it, right? Makes sense. Like no one is saying that it is not you, but you can, in a weird way, consciousness has that fractal property where you can kind of pick a particular part and then watch the other parts from it. So if you are able to observe that thing, it has less of a hold over you. So definitely, yes, you can watch your anger buttons get pushed and you can feel the anger buttons get pushed in your body and the images in your head go off, but you can now choose to not act. And as a matter of fact, the number of incidents, I'll put it quantitatively because it never goes away, that thing that you are, if you're anger prone or whatever particular aspect of the 7 deadly sins happens to be your particular bag, right? That's never going to change. It's just a question of you exercising concentration, equanimity, and sensory clarity. Your ability to exercise these things is what really changes.
Okay. Are there any books that you feel could be helpful in such an endeavor to understand the actual process of, the meditation and how to control emotions?
That is very interesting because and that goes to the whole point of why I'm making these videos. I don't know any book that approaches it in this way, but Shin Zen Young, SHIN and then ZEN and then Young, is somebody that if there is a book, it's probably his book. But I know he has YouTube videos. He is a monk, American guy, but then studied in Japan, and it also has a scientific bent to as well. So I would say that if there's a book, it's him. But another author is Eckhart Tolle, I believe Tolle. These are more moving someone into the particular mind space to see what the whole meditation thing is about, right? And then you can kind of get some intuition as to, okay, maybe to kind of feel it more, if you will. But it's not like some kind of step-by-step tutorial kind of thing and guided meditation, but which I'm going to, in later parts in this series, I'm going to kind of lay out some kind of how. That's what the series is about, how. But those books are more, they just kind of give you more of a feel.
Sure. If you look at a lot of the medical literature, it appears that young Black men especially have a lot of stress. We die from heart disease. We have a lot of underlying health conditions, etc. Do you feel that getting ourselves in the right mental state would be, essentially a benefit and help the community to deal with a lot of the health conditions that we face?
I cannot. Yes, I do agree. And it just goes back to it's almost a given. Okay, and it doesn't really matter the particular reasons why. In other words, life, okay, life leaves you prone to anxiety just by you being alive, right? Like if you're just alive, there is a level of anxiety that's already there. And that's why, generally speaking, whether you were born in a palace or born in the trenches, people look to sedate themselves, right? They look to escape, right? It's
Mm.
it's uh it's common knowledge represented in different ways. One way represents it as original sin, another way represents it as life is all about suffering, which is more of the Buddhist way, or maybe a nihilist way if you want to look at it from a Western point of view. But regardless, yes, life will put you. Life is a strange life as a human being, as far as we know it, is a strange situation to be in, right? So, and then there'll be other things coming in. But regardless, the fact that you know that life is a strange situation and is going to task you in terms of your mental capacity to keep things straight, to operate this being, right? Which has its own drives, its own instincts, its own intuitions. But then you have a very small part of your interface, which you can kind of use to try to control the whole thing. Then definitely it is required. It's a requirement for everyone just to be able to cope, right?
Right, right. I mean, I would completely agree with that, especially since anybody that would like to achieve anything in life is going to be going through a lot of difficulties, whether it's academics and business, etc., and that is going to cause stress. So I think you're spot on with that.
100%. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for joining.
Thank
Gonna
you.
continue.
Thank
You are welcome, Lion Legal, and go ahead and subscribe to Lion Legal if you have not already. All right, so drop
Thanks, dude.
your. You are welcome. Not a problem. Drop that
Yeah,
link
yeah.
in the
I
chat.
will. Yes, yeah. I will try and drop the link in the chat so that anybody who would like to subscribe can. And great show, by the way. Take care.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. So, recall. And those are great calls to kind of elucidate the point, talk about the point, understand the point, really get a feel for the landscape that we're in here and what we're trying to do here. Okay? What are the different modes, exercises that we have to exercise that presence, exercise your attention, right? You want to develop something, you're going to use it. So, you know that there is no magic bullet. It's about a formal use of a particular capacity. And we said that you can choose the body. Okay. Recall, we're doing this whole cardiovascular analogy, and we're trying to understand what we are better or best suited for, where we would like to start. Okay. Because a lot of times not having the landscape will lead you into a position where you might be put off by the particular aspect that somebody is showing you. It's almost like never knowing that there is something, or let's just say like that that is a rowing machine and you're just a rowing machine maniac. That's your thing. But somebody told you that cardio was all about tennis. They never even told you about running or swimming or anything. And you're like, this cardio thing, I don't really like it because I don't really like tennis, right? So that's the idea here. You're going to develop certain capacities, okay? And what are the options? What's the landscape? We said you're going to be formally using your attention in the space of the body, right? And in the body, you have sensations. And we're going to elaborate upon the sensations because in the body, you also have perceptions, right? The outward ones. But let's talk about the sensations first. We always hear the breathing one, right? We always hear the breathing one. That one is key. That one is key. So you're using or you're paying, it's a funny word, to pay attention to the breath and then using it as an access point for sensations. What you do here is you're actively, in a formal way, using your attention to focus on something, your breath, and by extension, your bodily sensations. Because once you take a deep breath, you feel your body. And that's why it's always a good idea. And that's why everybody says it. Hey, 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 relax. All right. Young Swift, don't be so aggressive. Take a deep breath. Right? And when you take that breath, you feel what's going on, the heart rate, hormones surging here and there. And then you can kind of have some kind of well, I have to make a decision, but I don't want to be controlled by my body. It's the beginning of not being controlled is when you pay attention to something. That goes to the answer to the question that I gave earlier. That basically by paying attention, you gain a level of mastery. Okay. So if you're down with the breathing, and the breathing is the easiest one because breathing also is something that can be automatic and also can be controlled. So it's a great access point for exploring your whole mechanism, if you will. And it is a great way of controlling many other aspects of it. You can reduce your heart rate through your breathing. You can increase your temperature, you can control all kinds of things through your breathing. But really, it's a way of using breathing as an access point to feeling the sensations in your body. And then you can perform certain controls, if you will. But yeah, so using sensations, you can use the breathing. You can pay attention also to internal sensations created by emotions. Okay. You can sit there and feel what it's like to feel bad because it's going to be a feeling in the body. It's going to be located somewhere in your body. Okay. That's the beauty about it. All right. It doesn't come from the sky. It is somewhere in your body. Sensory clarity is a very important aspect of what you try to develop. So it's not just all about relaxation, if you will. Okay. Excuse me. It is not all about relaxation and a certain amount of concentration. What you need also is sensory clarity. So, if, for example, you think, I'm already sort of a chill person, but still, sensory clarity means you know the different flavors of anger that you have based on how much of it is based on some kind of a present antagonistic feeling, or maybe a little bit more on the past. In other words, how much of it is mental versus how much of it is physical. Okay. And what are the different flavors of physical? Is this more like a stomach anger or a heart anger? Is it mixed with a little bit of shame? In other words, you're going to be able to have the ability through how feelings manifest themselves and then images in the head manifest themselves and talk in the head manifests itself to know, to discern all the various gradations and differences, right? So that's a key aspect. That's a sensory clarity aspect, okay? And we're just talking about the body so far, but the body being an option for formally practicing your attention, because this is about how you meditate. And first of all, we're going to lay out the landscape so you can know, what am I good at? What can I choose from? What do I not want to do? Maybe you're not a breathing guy. You don't like breathing stuff, but there are other kinds of body types think of yoga, for example. There are certain specific kinds of yoga. Yoga, generally speaking, is a way of grounding yourself with your body, right? And paying attention to your body. Takes attention to your body to be able to hold those poses. You're going to be paying attention to slight variations and this tendon versus that tendon, this muscle versus this muscle, plus your breathing as well. Okay. This is formally using your attention, right? And we know, given the use it or lose it proposition that, or within which our biology consists, we know that when you use something, that you're developing it. And when you have these formal ways of using them, you have a hack, okay? An exercise is a hack to develop a certain capacity. Okay? And we just discussed rather briefly the sensations side of the ledger. Yes, that you can go from the body, but you could also go from the mind. But the other part of the body is perceptions, okay? You have perceptions. You have an ear. You can use now or pay attention to the ear. Some people like to listen to mantras, for example, or music of a particular kind. Okay? I have a video called Listen to the Sound of Your Ear, and I would recommend listening to that one and doing what is said in that one in order for you to check to see if this is a nice little avenue that you have, because you want to be able to do or get into this whole exercise game in as many ways as you can, right? If you have all the options open to you for cardio, like you like swimming, you like running, you like cycling, you like tennis and basketball and golf and everything else, then you're in a great position. But basically, you want to know all the things that are available out there to you, all the options that you have, so that you can know, oh, okay, just like with the cardio, I'm fundamentally working my lungs, heart and blood vessels, but definitely the lungs are an important part of that thing. The respiratory system and the cardiovascular system go hand in hand. So I'm fundamentally exercising that thing, but I have many different options. So here I'm fundamentally exercising my attention, my ability to be present, exercising and developing the capacities of concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity. But I have different ways to pay attention to the body, for example, the sensations in the body, whether they be internal, and we call those emotions, or whether they are just the sensations of our internal organs, a backache, for example, which all of which colors our subjective experience, right? But basically, you can pay attention to these aspects of your sensations. You can also pay attention to your perceptions. And we were talking about the ears. There's a ringing in the ear. You can use that. Or you can just listen to the sounds in a quiet room. Or you could go to the grocery store and try to listen to the furthest sound you can hear. Okay, maybe the beeping of the cash register, or may even be cars passing in front of the grocery store. And by so doing, you're also going to be able to hear the closest sound you can hear. Because hearing tends to work that way. You can listen to the closest sound and listen to the furthest sound. And it's a great way of bringing a great deal of attention and awareness to your internal state and also the external state. A great way to kind of make it one, a great way to externalize. Externalization is a great capacity, just to hop off on a slight tangent here. Okay, since I mentioned it. Externalization is a key thing you need when fighting this battle out here, ladies and gentlemen. And that's the ability to be able to shift your attention from internal to external. And for example, in World War II, or let's just say it is great advice, a great admonishment, a great skill to have when dealing with dangerous situations, or you're going to be in a situation where somebody, you're in the battlefield. You may or may not get shot. Oh, as a matter of fact, you just got shot. The ability to externalize and now just take away the focus from yourself and put it out there is a great tactic to have in any kind of battle. I described an extreme case. You're actually in a battle, getting shot at. But in all the other cases, all the other lower gradations from there down of being in some kind of a danger, the ability to externalize, the ability to be able to focus on the outside. And this thing about listening to the outside sounds and also focusing on the outside environment is a great way of being able to take the internal shock. Okay, so that was just a slight tangent to kind of give something which is more or less a bit of a tip out there for you guys, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, just a little bit of a tip. So, what are you good at? What would you be interested in? Do you like the land of perceptions? Do you like to maybe listen to a mantra or pay attention to the sound of your ear? Or focus on a particular object? There are focusing exercises that you can do, which are ways of formally using your attention to the space of your subjective consciousness. And that's how you develop that capacity. Like, of course, duh, right? To ourselves, we say, any capacity needs to be used in order to develop it. That's how you develop it. There is no magic bullet. There is no free lunch, right? And if there's a pill for it, then there's something else you're paying, right? If you're going to take Ritalin for your attention, or if you take a pill, a drug for this, we all know that there is no biological free lunch. Okay? You're paying something in order to get that value, that benefit. All right? How about we just do it for free? How about we go in there and practice this thing, because we know that our biological systems need to be stressed, practiced, pushed in order for them to actually survive. It's not just about excelling. It's not just about being the best. It's about survival. It's about not atrophying and dying. So, as you may guess, the other aspect of this, okay, is the mind. Okay, we get the body. Okay, there's internal sensations and external sensations. Okay, in the perception end of things is where you have those external sensations. You could pay attention to external sensations of all kinds. You could pay attention to your eyes, your sight. It's a great way, by the way, because there are ways of looking at the eyeball as an extension of your brain, because it's connected directly to your brain. Okay, and it is very much a part of your brain. So your eyeball is just a little bit of brain showing out here, okay? And that's why when it comes to resting, shutting the eyes is very key, right? If you can shut your eyes, cover your eyes from light and so on and so forth, even if you don't get actual sleep, right? It is key to be able to do that, because there's direct input of high octane information going from the eyes directly into the brain with this huge pipe optic nerve. So basically, and that's why we tend to think of ourselves, like when you think of yourself up here in your eyes, right? But did you ever think about why you don't think of yourself as, your feet? You tend to think about us being up here, over here. This is where I'm at. And we look at other people as they're up there too, right? And it's not surprising. It's an eye-brain thing going on there, okay? The eye and the brain are one optic nerve directly to the brain. It's a huge part of the energy that we use, and so on, and so on, and so on. You can use it, okay? Then we have the mind, obviously, right? We have the mind landscape that we can play in, okay? We can use mental images, for example. You can decide to pay attention to your thoughts. There are other formal exercises, and you can see if you like something like this or not, where it says, hey, relax, create a blank slate in your mind, and in this blank slate, put this thing, put that thing, hold them in your mind, and so on and so forth. In other words, the ability to use your imagination, okay, using your imagination to visualize, using that as a formal way of paying attention to your subjective consciousness. Because again, the capacity is, if you use formal ways of paying attention to your subjective consciousness, you will, by definition, be increasing those powers. You will have more concentration, sensory clarity, equanimity, more presence, and you want more presence. You want to be more present with yourself, more present with others as well, your loved ones, your family, so on and so forth, more present with your work. So, mind type meditations involve mental images, paying attention to the mental images that go through. Okay, you can pay attention to your thoughts. You can do the visualizing exercises. Okay, visualizing exercises are particularly great if you're quote unquote a visual person, right? This may be a good path for you to go down. You'll be like, you know what? I'll combine my breathing exercises with a little bit of visualization stuff because I like visualization stuff. If you're an ear person, right? You'll be like, I may want to go with this mantra stuff, paying attention, using my attention formally in that particular way. Okay. And then there are things such as internal songs or drum beats or so on and so forth that are just playing in your head, anyways, that you can use. And I try to distinguish from this and thoughts. Thoughts just mean coherent thoughts that you happen to be having going through your head that are more formed in terms of ideas and speech, right? But if it's just some beat that plays in your head or some kind of music that's playing in your head that day, you can actually use it as a means of formally paying attention and formally using your attention. Yes, sir. I see my man, Dr. Thunder, in the house. Dropping it. And checking for you says this is interesting. Okay. Well, I'm glad some part of this, whichever part of this you mean, 100% RT, the brand. You can see your thoughts forming. Okay. And by the way, there are many other kinds of visualizations. Like you will notice that there's this idea called the homunculus idea. It's the word is an old word, just like soul, and it's more from the alchemical background, if you will. But the idea is this, okay? You have a little image in your head of yourself that you tend to see when certain aspects of your sensorium, if you will, is activated. Even if you try to move your feet, you will find that there's a little picture of your feet, a little part of that your brain tends to visualize, right? So, and when you get in the zone sometimes, okay, that thing about seeing yourself, when you get in the zone, you can almost, for example, once I was dancing, okay? And as you guys know, when I do my musical thing, I'm practicing a lot of this meditative, any kind of presentation, any kind of act, as a matter of fact, because the whole point of meditation is to make your whole life a living meditation. But especially on the dance floor or in any kind of a performance, because you want to be relaxed. And that's the fundamental thing that you're transmitting in the room is comfort. Entertainment really is comforting. And being able to make people comfortable in the room is the first part of the entertainment thing, right? So out there dancing in the zone, complete, right? And I could see myself dancing, right? So in other words, it's putting into perspective those things about watching yourself when you get super in the zone, or you're doing certain psychedelics or whatever. You do have an image of yourself constantly all the time of both conscious and unconscious things that your body is doing and feeling, right? And when you really get in the zone, you can watch, oh, like, okay, this is how I'm dancing. This is what my body is doing This is how it is planning it. And it's almost like you're watching yourself dance rather than dancing. And you may have heard this before from other performers. Like when they're really in the zone, it's like they're watching. Comedians say this. It's like I was watching someone else doing the jokes, right? That's when you're really in the zone, meaning you're really relaxed and super concentrated, okay, such that you're not in the way of yourself. You're floating, you're swimming, you're bobbing and weaving, and you're jabbing. So this is a question. Let's see here. That's RT brand, right? Yes, yes, yes. Every time I get in the zone, I realize in the zone you slip out. Yeah, that's the whole point of the zone. So, how do I feel about laws of attraction and subconscious affirmation? Here's what I think about it. I don't have anything to say about things that I do not have a hypothesis for. So everything that I state is usually a hypothesis, meaning it presents some possible mechanism of action, right? So, what is a possible mechanism of action? Well, how do I see the law of attraction and subconscious affirmation to work? I say 100% because here's what happens. Okay. And I always try to present things in a way where there is a plausible method of action, not just, oh, if you put it into the universe will bring it back to you. You know, there are better poetic and romantic ways of saying that, because that kind of universe talk is also kind of dry and silly and not poetic even. Okay. But when you pay attention to something, you're training the elephant. Okay. So when you either you write down your goals and you look at it every morning, or you say it to yourself every morning, okay, what you're doing is you're putting your psyche in a state where it is getting used to the idea of you meeting these goals. In other words, when you say the goal, there is a feeling that goes on in your body and an image in your head and a talk in your head. These things will have to do with maybe certain fears you have about getting the goal. In other words, similar to what I said about being the most comfortable person in the room in order to persuade the room, you need to be comfortable in yourself vis-a-vis whatever goals you have in order for you to actually persuade yourself to do it, and in order for you to actually actively do it. So if you're actively stating your goals and so on and so forth, you're eliciting a particular state in your mind. And the more you get used to that state, the more you actually train the elephant to go there. Using the analogy of the elephant and the rider, okay? The rider is you. You're the CEO. You say, pay attention to this. Once the elephant pays attention to that, the elephant will then do that. The elephant is unconscious. It is habits. It is the more powerful thing. There's drives and instincts and intuitions, right? It's more powerful than the rider, but the rider has its power as well. But we can look at it in terms of scale. The elephant is what needs to be trained. So training the elephant is what affirmations is about. It's not a magical thing. You're not putting it out. Well, this is my hypothesis, right? My hypothesis is not about putting it out in the universe. It's saying that the way it works is that you are meditating in induced states. You induce a state that says, I am a millionaire or something. And it scares you and it feels this way. You got to think about the work and so on and so forth. And then you meditate through that. In other words, you actually feel comfortable with that, so that now that's not a block for you anymore. That's why you do meditation. And this is what I do have to say about laws of attraction, subconscious affirmation, so on and so forth. Does that make sense, RT? Let me get a 1 in the chat if my little diatribe addressed your question. The out of body thing, I believe I mentioned earlier, but to a certain, beyond a certain degree, I don't really have much of a framework for giving the thoughts on it. There is a certain degree which I said, like, yes, you do have that homunculus in your head. You can kind of see it separately your body is, your organism. If you take, for example, sleepwalking, okay, there are many things that you can do, right, that while completely outside of yourself. So there is a point to which I have experienced many, many things that I still cannot include in any coherent hypothesis, right? And I think that not having coherent hypotheses and just blurting out experience for experience sake is a road down a very wrong direction that could end you in a very bad spot, saying all kinds of nonsense, right? Indeed, indeed, indeed. RT the brand says, "Oh yeah, it made sense." And I was thinking of possibly tied in your subject of meditation. Yes, it did. It does tie in. What if you're too passionate while in a meditative state? Let me mention Young Swift. Too passive, you said. That is a very good thing. There's two sides to play the game from. Just like when RT asked about affirmations, affirmations are ways of not being passive, right? Affirmations are saying, okay, I'm going to go in this high state of concentration and relaxation, but I'm also going to try to trigger myself by saying certain things and putting my focus on certain things, right? So if you're saying, well, I'm too passive, well, then this is when you then add something that will agitate you so that then you can practice the concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity on that particular agitation. And you can also glean certain wisdoms about the right way to act versus dealing or depending so much on your drives and so on and so forth. So if you're thinking, well, I'm too passive when I meditate, that means you need to make decisions while you're in the meditative state to be active, right? To be meditatively active is better than to be unconsciously active. To be consciously active is better than to be unconsciously active. Sir, you're on, and I hear a
Can you hear me now?
yes, I can.
Okay.
What's going on, sir?
What's happening, man? So I mean, I love this topic.
I hear feedback from you from you still have, I'm sorry, YouTube open.
Are you getting no, I don't have YouTube open. All of this other stuff is off. Let me make sure. Let me check something real quick. We just go through a different you know what? Is that better? Is that any better? Or are you still getting feedback? Is that better?
It's all good. Well, I still I hear you twice, but just it's not so loud or anything, and maybe it's something on my end, but my bad. Go ahead.
Oh, that's strange. I hope it's not making it so I'm not discernible.
Go ahead. We'll see what we can do.
Okay, all right. So anyhow, I love this topic. This has been an important topic. The older I get, the more important this topic becomes. And I grew up in a circumstance where I didn't talk and wasn't talked to about meditation at all or very much. And so I'd say around age 30 is when I started at least becoming more aware of it, and then started to put certain things in practice. And in particular, I wanted to talk about anxiety. So a couple years ago, about a year and a half ago, I had a rather pronounced battle with panic attacks, anxiety, and insomnia, which is three things you don't want to experience together because they make each other much worse. And the solution for that was meditation. Ultimately, that ended up being the solution for it. Now, it took a while. It wasn't like a magic pill. But when I consistently got into a particular regimen, a particular pattern, my sleeping issue started to go away. And then I started to become more aware of triggers that were causing me to become anxious. And then I started to be able to develop the ability to see or to separate certain feelings that I was having. Because if you have panic attacks, you're having this sensation. So basically, my panic attacks were, you get this fight or flight. It's this very strong, very base. It's a powerful, it's instinctual. It's a evolutionary. It's it's there. You can't turn it off. Right? You have this fight or flight thing. And so what happens is it tells your body to flood your system with adrenaline. And you get this adrenaline going, and then every single thing that you're experiencing is like 100 times more pronounced and more intense. And so part of learning how to sort of separate myself from that was, now you can beforehand, you can start saying, okay, well, here are some triggers, and if I can try to minimize those triggers, then I'll minimize the chance of having a panic attack. But usually what this means is that you'll have to actually have the panic attack and be able to talk yourself down. You're like, okay, this is not real. I mean, it is real, but it's a feeling. It's not, the end of the world is actually not coming right now. You have to learn how to talk yourself down. And then what will happen is, over a process of time, the panic attacks become lesser and lesser and lesser, as far as intensity goes. But I never before had to engaged in any sort of ritual, any sort of meditative process to go to sleep. I just basically got up in the morning. I worked hard all day until I couldn't stay awake anymore, and then passed out, and that was just my process. And so now, every night I have a particular ritual, and I have to do the ritual the same way. I mean, I don't have to do it the same way, but it's most effective if I do the same thing and try to go to sleep around the same time. I think a lot of men have this issue, but they don't talk about it. So anyhow,
I mean, you put a lot on the table there. So as it pertains to certain questions that were asked, questions that hinge upon what are the kinds of changes that one would expect, right? And how does the mechanism work? Someone even asked about affirmations and the law of attraction and so on and so forth, right?
Yes.
And then I said that there has to be some kind of a mechanism, some kind of plausible mechanism, some kind of a hypothesis that is intuitive and that we can all understand. Otherwise, there's no point in speculating. So what you said is a very clear description of having a happening, right? Sometimes I like to call it the weather. Okay, so what you described, that particular evolutionary, let's flood you with adrenaline event. Okay, it's kind of like, let's call it a storm. Okay, and what you're developing is the ability to, rather than be completely moved by the storm, you're more like this wind, the wind vane, the thermometer, and the barometer. Like, you're measuring it. Okay, you're like, oh, okay, it's coming, it's over here. All right, the wind is. Oh my God! Oh crap! Not here again at Chipotle or whatever, right? And then, by the mere ability to measure it, to pay attention to it, because attention always precedes control, right? You need to be able to perceive something before you can take control. So creating that perceptual framework, and then all of a sudden it starts to back its way down. So what you described, panic attack, that's the extreme end of something. Okay. And then everything else, a little bit of anger, a little bit of jealousy, a little bit of this, a little bit of whatever it is that is going on in that weather pattern, whatever formation the clouds are taking. Okay.
Right.
If you can do it for panic attacks, then it works for everything else.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. One struggle, one battle within is this sort of the competition versus it's like who are you competing against, really? That's a real struggle, and it can take a long time, I think, for people to figure that out. Like, who should you be competing against? And at first it seems like you're supposed to compete against everyone else. Right? But then you start to figure out that, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be competing against other folks, really. You're really supposed to be competing against yourself. Right? And it's your potential self versus who you are now. That's really where the competition is.
Should I throw a wrench in there? And you may be going there already, right? Yeah, sure. The thing about that is, like every other ego trick, is that the question could be asked, okay, oh yeah, you're competing against yourself, but your real motivation is to be better than those other people. You're just using this as a proxy. This is your method. Yeah, this is your tactics. Okay, but what's your real strategy? Okay, your real strategy is you want to be seen by other people, so on and so forth. In other words, there is I'm sorry for throwing. I don't know if I completely just threw you off whatever track you're going down. Okay, because basically this is something that occurs, and I think the good doctor froze on us. You may have to.
Oh, I think we both froze. I was watching the stream. We looked like we both froze for a second.
Wow. So we both froze there for a second. Okay. But anyways,
it looks like we're both back now. So
we're both back now. Yeah. And yeah, the whole thing that I was saying about, well, that whole tangent that I took you on of how the ego because when you ask who you're doing something for, that's why that whole word ego came into my head, right? Because it seems like we're over in that space, right? Mm-hmm. We're over in that space. We're over in that storyland, as I like to call it, right? And over there is trick on top of trick on top of trick on top of trick. In other words, there is no end to the. For example, you could be like, I'm going to put away all my belongings. I'm going to go up into the mountain. I'm going to live an ascetic lifestyle. I'm not living for anything but, whatever. And I'm going to, my whole being is going to be on to the glory of. Go ahead, right? But in your head, there is still the question of like, you're just doing this for whatever kind of grandiosity that you're getting. In other words, the ego is still the ego can even use you moving up to the mountain as a source of its little manipulative BS, if it makes sense.
I mean, to use your example about, going to a monastery or something, so nobody can even see you. right? I mean, consider in the Bible the Pharisees. So that's essentially what they did, right? And they were trying to be and they were very knowledgeable and everything else. The problem with the Pharisees is they were applying different standards to other folks than themselves, right? So in every other way, they were okay. It was that they were holding other folks to different standards than they held themselves to. And so then that ended up being this ego trick that you're talking about. That's the way that it manifested. So even in that kind of situation, I mean, surely if I, my whole existence is to serve God, right? Then definitely that's when I can avoid, the tricks of the ego. But no, not there either. And maybe they're even more so than other places, yeah, it's an interesting challenge. I put in the chat a couple things. The philokalia, have you heard of this?
No.
Okay, so the philokalia in the history of the church is esteemed maybe only second to the Bible, the canon of Scripture. And it basically was a manual for monks. And it's translated by oh my goodness, where I can't remember. I can't believe I can't remember his first name, but Callistos, but Bishop Callistos Ware. So he had them translated from Greek into English, and it's 4 volumes, and it's about the heaviest stuff that you've ever read. Like one page requires about a month of contemplation, maybe longer. 2 or 3 months of like contemplations for several hours a day. And they talk a lot about achieving a state of dispassion and what they mean by that. And it's very, very interesting, but a lot about meditation, a lot about the practice of hesychasm,
What's hesychasm, if you don't mind?
So hesychasm is stillness or quietness. I mean, it's so you're not talking, you're not speaking, you're just listening. So it's the practice of listening. Often, so if I get into a meditative practice and I'm still using a lot of words, I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm saying sometimes the words could get in the way of me actually hearing something. And so having periods of time where maybe starting with 5 minutes, and then when you feel like you can do 5 minutes, then go to 10 minutes, then go to 20 minutes. I said something about these prayer beads or a prayer rope. And basically what that is it's a way to count how many times you've said a particular mantra. So it could be a prayer, it could be some positive affirmation. Something I talk to my students about is coming up with some sort of phrase that they can say before they practice their instrument, and then also before they perform, which helps to normalize and make it seem like, okay, I'm doing this thing before my practice. I'm doing this thing before I perform. So if they're having an issue with like performance anxiety, that it can help to actually, because of the sort of rhythm of it, to at least get them moving. Doesn't mean that they won't be nervous, but at least they're moving. And so basically a prayer rope, say, would have 30 knots in it. You could have one with more knots, and it has a marker every 30 knots. So you don't have to look at it. You can feel it, and you don't have to keep track of how many times you said something. So it doesn't prevent you from really getting into the zone and really getting deep into meditation. So if I know that from, from, from experience, from the number of times that I've done this, I know that I get about 150 times in this particular mantra. And that's when I really start to loosen up and start to whatever. Then I can say, okay, well, I'm going to use a rope that has 150 knots in it. And then I'm just going to keep going and I'm keep going. And at first it's cumbersome. It's slow. You're still battling external thoughts and everything else. And by the time you get to a certain place, then you start to elevate and you actually start to, truly meditate. It becomes truly meditative. But those are like ancient practices. I use a timer when I practice, and I tell my students to do this. And a timer is different than a clock, right? A clock is telling you what time it is. And so if I wanted to know how many minutes I have practiced, then I'd have to keep looking at the clock on the wall to see. And then every time I did that, I would break focus. But what a timer does is it counts a predetermined amount of time, and then it dings, right? So I borrowed that idea from the prayer rope, right? It's just a different way to measure you're just measuring something different. It's a different method, but the goal is the same. So by the time I get into, I don't know, say I allot 25 minutes to practice a particular thing, very specific thing that I'm working on. I don't know, maybe by minute 10, that's when I'm really dialed in and I'm really focused and intense. And, I get to 25, ding. And I don't want to go beyond what I can do because you're not accomplishing anything. So you have to work up to it. But anyhow, great. I mean, this is, your topics are like, it's great topics, and they're just topics that are just unusual, and the topics that I'd like to see a lot more often. So I'm glad you're doing this.
You know what? If you have time to read that particular comment, because this is, I tend to state my general positions on things like this. What would you say to this kind of a question or concern or comment?
Okay, so in relation to law of attraction, do you feel as if there is pseudoscience, ineffective NLP methods, and charlatan MLM marketing, networking, and pyramid scenes, or I think it's schemes, behind the main individuals hosting?
So, and also, just in case, I don't know how much background you may have as to this, the NLP, that's neuro-linguistic programming. Okay. And it's just think of it as there are many ways of persuasion, okay? And a big part of, let's just say, self-help or self-improvement is that winning friends and making people aisle, right? Okay. Right. We got to win friends and make people, or whatever the hell it is, right? But you get what I'm saying. Okay. Right. So that whole aisle is filled with all kinds of people whom teach you many different levels of how to persuade, sell, so on and so forth. Neuro-linguistic programming is a similar kind of a thing, right? And then obviously MLM, that's multi-level marketing, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of what he's kind of asking in general. Is there BS and pyramid schemes and things like that? Or what do you have to say?
Of course there is. People involved, right? I mean, that's kind of the, when I was just a Padawan, I was looking for the incorruptible. I was looking for the one thing that was devoid of the corrupt touch of man, but yet was an institution of some sort, ran by human beings, right? This is what I was looking for. And unfortunately, this doesn't exist. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that we should throw everything out, right? So I think sometimes people use the ability to point out a particular flaw as a way to remove their not their culpability, but their responsibility. You know, so it's like, well, see, that's messed up too. So I don't have to deal with that either. Oh, and that's messed up over here too. So I don't have to deal with any of that. Well, the thing is that the world is actually more gray. This is what makes me very questionable about our, and I'm not pivoting, I promise, our political system, our two-party political system, is because it seems so black and white. You know, how is it that the two parties have such clearly polar opposite and cleanly polar opposite views on almost everything? You know, how is this the case? You know, because that's not how people think, and that's not how we are, right? Everything
Go
is
ahead.
gray. Everything is gray. And so it makes it important for us to be able to, you know, eat the meat and spit out the bone. You got to be able to eat the meat and spit out the bone. So sure. Yeah, I think that there's likely some charlatans and some bogus stuff that's going on, but there's also probably a lot of truth, a lot of good stuff. So the trick is trying to figure out how to determine the difference between, you know, the bone and the meat, you know.
100%. Yeah. So, and this is also why I do these videos. And somebody asked earlier, like, why do I feel the need to put this out there? It's because there are many excuses for people to not look into this because of the quote unquote charlatanism, generally speaking, that is out there. So whether it be and then we'll go to this particular chanting thing. I'll make it. I'll say something about that. Whether it be the neuro-linguistic programming or many other things. Okay, given the general framework that I have, and my framework, you know, it's not like I came up with it, but I tend to think it's more intuitive. In other words, no matter what comes up, okay, neuro-linguistic programming, they say something, they make some claim. I have some roadmap to check it with, right? Because I just kind of have a simple rubric by, okay, well, feelings in the body, image in the head, this, that, okay, intuition, pop, pop, pop. Okay, well, what's going on here? Okay, I can see that. And then, in other words, have some kind of an explanation. And if there isn't, then it is BS. So I'm doing this and putting things in a way where there can be a clear hypothesis vis-a-vis things like meditation and so on and so forth, so that people can say, okay, well, there is something to this, right? And I'm not going to be put off by the Deepak Chopras of the world. And yes, I like calling his name, not because of it's total hate, because guys like that, for me, it's never total, like a total diss. It's almost, I feel, because there's always that 80%, which is correct. But the problem is the rest of it. And, you know, it's all good. It's all good. We have to come in through different on-ramps, right? And maybe some will finally make their way through the right circuitous route to the truth, if you will. But
It's
also,
like prosperity gospel.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of truth involved in that, but then there's a bunch of stuff that's obviously is obviously garbage. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff that kind of turns your stomach. I mean, at least if you're aware of it. You know, some folks are not, and they get swallowed up by that. But yeah, I mean, you know, an effective lie is guarded, you know, by a shroud of lies, you know.
So I mean, What do you think about okay, let me mention what I think about the comment that is on the screen right now.
Yeah.
And that has to do with mantras, so on and so forth. You talked about counting, you've talked about the prayer beads. I grew up Catholic, used the rosary, and also know
Yeah.
about the Islamic beads and so on and so forth. So, and this is it's great that this is coming up, because this is why I wanted to make this particular video, right? If you look at the video, it says, what are the options, right? Part one, what are the options?
Mhm.
So that before you just get into, oh, you do this and then you do, it's like, well, let's understand the landscape of possible options. So that if
Right.
you don't like tennis, then you can be like, I'll play basketball. You don't like basketball, you can do hot yoga. You don't like that, you can run, or you can swim, or you can cycle, right? And so that there is no kind. So let me put it this way: I don't like the sounds thing either. Either something I'm saying to myself or something I hear from outside. I like to be more quiet. Maybe I think I probably have a noisier mind than most. Therefore, I like to listen to that more so, right? While trying to stay equanimous and also do the concentration. And I'm also very much a breathing guy, right? And then I go from there. But that's my basic. My basic is always breathe and feel and listen in there to hack into, or use the ears, just the ringing in the ear. In other words, I'd rather listen to the ringing in my ear than any other kind of that's my mantra, right? So point is, there are many ways to go about this, and that's why I'm making this video talking about the different on-ramps. I don't know if you have any comment on that.
Yeah. Some folks really like walking. I've heard a lot of very deep people that suggest that just by going for a walk, it just makes them clearer of thought. It makes them, there's just something about being outside, about breathing the air, and the sort of ambient noises that are happening, even if there are some car horns thrown in there, and and some surly language every once in a while. But it just kind of, there's an atmospheric sort of thing that people get into, and that can be a powerful form of meditation. The breathing thing, obviously, that's been said a lot, but I think there's different approaches to that. I mean, some folks talk about taking a breath, holding the breath in for a period of time, and it could be from 10 seconds to whatever you're comfortable with, and then letting it out. I get into this thing where, I'll do that in conjunction with,
Gotcha.
really being bodily present and shaking my arms out and trying to make sure that my neck is, that my shoulders are relaxed. All of that stuff is I think a form of meditation.
100%. You know what? Like, it's almost like, that thing that the dog does when it shakes itself off. The dog is meditating, right?
Yeah.
You could, and we get it intuitively. Ducks do it too, and it could usually, it's not just from one side, one kind of feeling. It could be from an intense situation where they're scared or whatever, or it could also be from you petting them, right? Whatever some kind of intensity they get, they have to kind of shake it off, okay, and then they move on. And ducks do it as well after they fight. And we intuitively know what they're doing. We have bodies as well. It's not like we're off, in some kind of astral plane or something. It's like we recognize that thing, right? And why don't we have a systematic and formal way of doing it? And you're saying that, hey, you're preaching my language there, okay? And somebody said, how do you channel the mind flow? Sometimes you mentioned, okay, that there are the beads and so on and so forth, ways of keeping time. I would answer this question by saying there are many you should have a formal practice. In other words, if you're finding yourself in real life, if you're finding that in real life, this particular capacity is slipping, right? Then it's just, it should give you the unction to go do more practice in a formal way of this particular ability, right? So rather than comment on how to keep your flow state on your mind in the act of, doing your work, living your life, cooking your food. It's, well, first of all, just go to the gym, right? Or go to the practice hall and work on it there, right? And then you'll find out the kinks there, right? In other words, the formal practice, do formal meditations. And I would say, and that's why I mentioned the timing and such before, that if your mind tends to wander, then you should use the clock to your advantage. For example, if you're supposed to be going 3 minutes, you're breathing in and you're focusing on your left side, and then another 3 minutes, you're focusing on your right side, so on and so forth. Leave different, let's say, timers, right? Alarms or whatever. That every 3 minutes is like ding. So you'll notice, like, your mind may have already gone off and you're no longer meditating. You're thinking about, TRL Live with Carson Daly or something. I don't know, like, because you're way back in the day like that. Then you'll be like, oh, okay, cool. I forgot, right? So using something to bring back the certain monks use the gong, right? That's why they do that.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that are done are for a reason. The tea they drink is to kind of keep them up so that they can stay in that position. The position that they stay in, it tends to be best to not fall asleep in and to keep your spine straight so you can take in deep breaths and so on and so forth. Like, it really is all about formally using those particular capacities and growing them in that way. So,
I mean, it's like anything. If you want to get good at it, then you have to practice it a lot. You have to, and when I say practice, maybe I should just say you just have to do it a lot. And maybe what I mean by practice, I don't mean a sort of clinical sounding term, sort of devoid of joy. That's not what I mean. I just mean that practice, meaning that, if you think about it, medical practice, right? So, or a law practice, right? So I mean, in that sense where, yeah, you should be getting better at it as you're doing it more, but you also want to be able to measure your progress. You have to keep track of, and sometimes from stuff that you eat to different kinds of experiences that you have, all of that stuff can have an effect on how well you can meditate. I hear Ike talking often about water, the importance of water. So it all matters.
100%. It's like, and I'm gonna go back to that because I introduced that pyramid thing in one of my videos. It's just kind of a way of organizing certain things, starting with your hydration and this and that, and then meditation is somewhere in there, right? But look, the base of my pyramid is the body for a reason, right? It's like, before you ask any questions, can we see how the vehicle, what shape is the vehicle, right? Before we start talking about, well, it was able to do this many miles yesterday, it can't do this many miles today, the RPMs or this, like, can we just look, is it hydrated? Is it lubricated? Come on, what's going on with the vehicle here? How's the exhaust system, right? So always start there, and hydration is the main thing. Someone is asking, Young Swift is asking this, and this is a typical thing in the sense that there is a vision out there of meditation as being something whereby you're just kind of flowing and you cannot be, it's all chill, man. Plus there's a cultural aspect, which is the whole kind of chill, man, kind of aspect. Let it flow, live and let live, man. That's kind of part of the picture. But what I would say is this, there's a reason, martial artists, the best of them, are in a meditative state. Now, the question is being asked by this person because they know, okay, that when Floyd is doing his thing, he's in a meditative state. They're mentioning Kobe and
Right. And Michael.
And Michael here, but they kind of already know. So first, I'm just repeating that, yes, we know that definitely it is not an anathema. It's not an opposition to be in that. As a matter of fact, you do have to be in a meditative state if you're not going to get your head chopped off by the samurai next to you, right? So, but the point is to develop these capacities, right? Concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity. You develop them for many different reasons. You don't develop them to go to sleep. Going to sleep is one thing you can use equanimity for, right? At the right time. So whatever it is you are doing, basically what you're putting yourself in the position of is having a well-formed observer, having a well-formed dashboard, a system by which you can look at the different systems in your body and in your mind, right? And this leaves you open to getting in the flow state more easily, to getting in that state where
Right.
you're watching, because the flow state is almost like that state where you're watching. You're highly relaxed and highly concentrated, and you start watching yourself do the stuff, right? You start watching yourself play the aggressive game, to go to his point about Kobe and Michael, the aggressive game, which you know you have to play, right? And you've been practicing and so on and so forth, and now you just get into it. So the whole chillax aspect of the meditation stuff and the namaste and it's all peace and the other. Yeah, that's, you got to take that with a grain of salt and, understanding that, we get it, right?
So you have two different. Oh, go on up there, back upstairs. Sorry. You have I'm going to talk about two different types of brainwave activity. Alpha state and theta state. Now there are others, obviously, but these are the two I'm going to focus on because they're very important in this context. So alpha state is a recognition of, it's like a recognition of a chair or, my Bluetooth headphones or, letters in the alphabet or stuff like sounding words out. It's like you get in the car and you're very aware of what's going on. Hand at 10 and 2, you're sitting, in the chair, you put your seatbelt on, every time you shift, you're aware of all of the processes, that you have to go through to get to the car to go. Not many people drive stick anymore, but there's a process involved with that. And if you don't have it just right, then the car is not going to go. So alpha state is the awareness of all of that stuff. It's in its infancy, at the beginning. That's what alpha state is. Theta state is when you're operating at a higher level. So you're no longer thinking of, the names of the stuff that you're touching or how to sound it out or how to operate it properly. None of that stuff is what you're thinking about anymore. You're at a higher level. So for instance, I'm a musician, and if you're successful as a musician, it means that you're probably going to be doing a lot of driving. So I drive a lot, and something that frequently happens is as I get in the car and I get going where I'm going, I'll get on a highway, a stretch, and maybe I have to be on that highway stretch for 100 miles or something. And what'll happen is I'll get somewhere in there, maybe after about 20 miles, 15 miles, and then all of a sudden 30 minutes or 45 minutes just evaporates. I just don't even notice where that time went. Now, it's not because I was falling asleep. It's none of that. It's just that something happened with the sound of the road, the frequency of the activity of driving, the familiarity with the inside of my car, with everything else. There was nothing different happening. Everything was normalized. That got me into that theta state. So where I was operating on autopilot and wasn't even aware of the passage of time. Okay. Now, I think that this is very much, it's very much what we're talking about when we talk about somebody like Michael Jordan, or you talk about Bruce Lee. The glow, he experienced the glow, basketball athletes talk about getting in the zone. Musicians talk about getting into the space or this zone. I don't know if you guys saw the movie Soul, but they talk about the zone, getting in the zone, and it was with all kinds of different disciplines. It's when you're operating on that higher efficiency level where all of these lower processes have all been packaged together so that they take no bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And everything else can just focus on that higher level thing. And, I've played a lot of gigs, and not every gig am I able to get to that place. But the ones that I do get to that place, it's an otherworldly kind of experience. It's just a different thing, but you have to be doing it consistently. It has to be a regular activity, because you won't get to that place where you can let go of of the attachments, so for instance, this is an F major scale. This is an F major scale on the horn. This is an F major scale. If I'm still thinking that, there's no way I'm going to be able to transcend it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be so familiar with it that I can let go of that. It doesn't even matter what it's called. I can just go to what it is that I'm really after, that. So,
it's
yeah, but that's what we're after when we talk about that. That's like the value of meditation. No, it's not just to, namaste, and so that you can have some of the, catchphrases. And certainly there's positive things about it as far as lowering your blood pressure, better health in general, lowering your stress levels. All of that stuff is all positive. In my mind, probably the highest reason that I want to achieve, that I want to meditate consistently, is because I want to be able to operate at that theta state. I want to be able to access that more frequently.
That goes to one of the very first questions that was asked in the chat was, well, is it okay to practice this meditation with thoughts of improvement in mind? And I was like, well, I don't see why not.
Yeah.
You don't have to go out with this, but you have to approach this with a pure heart. And you can't want any gain or benefit. It has to be for the benefit of the no. So yes, look, what you just said, in the space of doing a particular task, right? You have a particular task that you have to do. You need to outsource in order to, when you're doing it at the highest level, when you're in the zone, the space you described, seems to be that everything else is outsourced. By everything else, I mean, what scale is it? What are my fingers doing? All these different things, right? Gets outsourced to the automatic, unconscious, as you said. Therefore, it doesn't take bandwidth. The entirety of your bandwidth of your conscious mind is now just open and it's watching, and it can even enjoy it more, and also perhaps catch little things along the way. Now, that is great, and as you summarized, is the benefit of developing these capacities of concentration, equanimity, and sensory clarity. But even be above and beyond that, and that way it may begin to see, there may be some kind of clarity as to the fractal nature of the things that I tend to say in this channel. So when I say, for example, that you need boring routines, and you need to get into this space where you're not so much thinking about what you eat and where you're going to sleep and this, that, and the other. You need to outsource all those things to automatic land as much as possible, and so that you pay attention to other things. It's the same thing that I'm trying to do, just in the bigger scale, and it just goes fractal from there. The whole elephant and the rider. The elephant is more powerful. Your unconscious, that thing, the universe, if you will, right? It's got this. Okay, what you just got to do most of the time is learn how to create a nice little package with your conscious mind by formal practice and so on and so forth. Rehearse, and then create a little package to outsource it to the elephant, and just the elephant will run that program much better than your conscious mind can, generally speaking.
Now and this is we're still talking about the same topic, but this is something that probably happens to everyone listening frequently. I mean, it happens to me all the time. So I have a YouTube channel, and I'm on TV, and I'm I teach, and I play at church, and I'm gigs and stuff like this. So a lot of people see me in a lot of different arenas, and I work with a lot of different folks. And I am good with names if I purpose myself, if I have a specific reason to be good with names, but I don't just remember people's names. Okay. What happens to me frequently is people will bump into me at the grocery store. And initially, and this is somebody that I should know who they are. Okay. Initially, I'm a little like, man, why do I know this person? Do I know this person? And I say, hey, how do I know you? And then they'll tell me how they know me. And then what happens is instantaneously, it's like my thoughts become clear, and I get all of this information, all of this data, and I can remember all this detail about this person, right? Memories can flood in, right? Oh yeah, I know you because X, Y, and Z, and and all like this. Now, the reason that our brains work that way is to clear out bandwidth. If you had to walk around with conscious awareness of all of the people that you know and all of the details associated with those folks, that would be so cumbersome and would make it virtually impossible to be fully present in anything that you do. And so the ability to sort of catalog or to shelf information, maybe that's my personnel files or whatever, the ability to do that is actually an asset. That's a plus. And that's something that people do, especially if they know a lot of people from a lot of different sorts of activities. And I know a lot of different musicians. So I find myself in that kind of situation often. And, this trumpet player, say, why do I know this trumpet player? He says, oh yeah, we played together this gig a couple years ago, whatever. And then it's like, oh yeah, what's happening, man? So that's an example of that sort of a capability that our brain has. And you can use that to, make your life a lot easier and, more enjoyable and to facilitate, like I said, the ability to actually be in the moment. You can use your schedule, for instance, as a way to take a break from other activities that you do. If you're carrying all of the baggage from every activity that you do along with you all the time, then that's not going to work. So what you have to do is you have to learn how to create a schedule that gives you enough time to do the things that you need to do, right? Trust the schedule and drop the baggage at the beginning of each new session. Right? And then be fully present. And you're not going to be able to do it right at the beginning. You're not going to be able to do this very well from the beginning, but you can learn how to become well. And then again, this will give you the ability to take a break from the other stuff as you're engaging fully into something else.
100%, 100%, ladies
and that's meditation. 100%.
Oh yeah, he came through and he said it better than I could. Okay, I always like getting corroboration, well articulated corroboration on things like this. That way, I know I'm not just crazy over here. Like, oh, Ike is up there in the Bay Area. He's he's with the hippies now. So. Point is, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Thunder, by the way. You should go and subscribe to his channel, okay? Dr. Thunder, type it into the search bar, or he perhaps will be leaving his link in the chat, okay? And you'll be seeing more of Dr. Thunder, I think, on this channel. He definitely doesn't feel any any shame on imposing himself in here into the panel, but definitely you'll be seeing more of him, and we'll be having conversations of this sort and many others, I guess.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing a show. We're going to be doing some kind of a regular show starting in January, like a once a month thing. We'll see how it goes.
There you have it. There you have it. There you have it. I didn't want to do any kind of. I wasn't sure if he was down with the promotion yet, so I kind of hinted at it, and then he came in and he closed it. So yeah, that's good. good signs already.
There we go.
Already.
All right.
So did you have any last words? So I'm going to close this one out. I always think these things are going to be like, I just 45 minutes. I'm just going to talk about how meditation is like exercise, and then we get into it. But anyways,
no, this is wonderful, man. I just keep doing these. It is hard for me to resist from just popping up in the panel for these kind of discussions, man. This is like the stuff that I want to talk about. This is the stuff I feel starved. I feel starved in not having enough opportunities to wonderful stuff, man. God bless you.
Well, thank you very much. It's like, they're starved. There's a, and I think of the particular cohort of people that may be interested. I'm like, he's a PhD. Came to mind. I'm like, you are a PhD, aren't you?
Yeah, you need that button on the.
I need the he's a PhD button. So yeah, over here we're having conversations that the PhDs feel starved of from here in the YouTube lands, and I do like getting that. Number one, corroboration, but also the encouragement, because I don't know if, I know for sure that it's not for everybody, but I try to at least present it in a way, again, which is intuitive and actionable, and kind of break down certain myths and barriers to get into the world of psychology, philosophy, spirituality, metaphysics, this, that, and the other, from a very practical sense. And
the people that you will most effectively reach are the people that are wired similarly to yourself. You'll do it without even trying.
Well, 100%. There you go.
So please keep doing this.
All right. And with those closing words, we're gonna go back into this piece. We're gonna go back and just do a quick summary as to what exactly we did. What did we spend the last 2 hours now? What did we spend the last 2 hours doing? Okay. Basically, we said that we're going to lay out the landscape. We're going to lay out the options. Okay. There is this capacity called presence. Okay. We know about it. It's concentration, sensory clarity, equanimity. We want to be in the zone. What is that zoneness? What does it entail? I want it. Yes, it is a capacity. Therefore, under the use it or lose it proposition under which we all consist, our biology and so on and so forth, it makes sense that you have to use formally, just like you would formally use your muscles, your cardiovascular system in exercise, you have to use formally this particular capacity in order to develop it. Okay? And we're saying, as a matter of fact, if you do not develop this capacity, you will be unhealthy. Just the same way if you do not develop other capacities. If you leave your bones, your muscles, your immune system, your psyche, everything, if you leave it unchallenged, unperturbed, undisturbed, it actually dies. So it makes sense that we should look for modes of exercising our ability to be present. How do we exercise sensory clarity, equanimity, and concentration vis-a-vis the subjective landscape, the landscape of your feelings and your bodies, your images in your head and your talk in the head? We used this whole analogy between it being similar to the cardiovascular system. But at the end of the day, what we came up with is you have many options, ladies and gentlemen. You can go from the body side of things. Okay? You can go from the body side of things. Body has sensations. Internal sensations could be emotions and so on and so forth, or you could use the breathing as an access point to feel the body, to pay attention, Okay, attention is the bill here. Attention is what we have to use. That's the use it or lose it proposition, right? And what are we using so we don't lose? What are we using so we can increase? We're using the attentive framework. And attention has 3 at least aspects, which is concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity. Okay, you can use perceptions. You can use the listen to the thing or to the sound of your ear or to external sounds, mantras that you say or that you play on the radio. You could use your eyes, you could use external sensations, you could use the mind as well, visualization, okay? Visualization, mental images, mental noise, so on and so on and so on and so on. The next videos, okay, we'll go into each of these. The next videos in this series will say, okay, now that we've laid out the landscape, now that we know what is needed, now that we know what the options are, we're basically now going to go in and look at one at a time. So we're going to say how to meditate, part 2. Breathing exercises, right? Body under the body, subheading, breathing exercises. And then body under the body, another subheading about paying attention to the emotions and so on and so forth and so on and so on. Now, and then we'll see how many parts that takes. We'll try to do some guided meditations, okay? And as we go along, I will ask the audience if it is working in terms of the ability to absorb the information and participate in what we're going to be doing. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Shout out to Checking For You. Shout out to Young Swift. Shout out to Nicer, always holding it down. All right. We got all kinds of people in the house today, ladies and gentlemen, and it has been a pleasure, always a pleasure and an honor. And we're going to close ourselves out, ladies and gentlemen, as usual, by fighting the good fight, the battle within.
On the shore, relentless in the war, the legions in our hearts, shed waters in our balls, the spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest, the cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand, stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. With the semblance of a blaze, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand, stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within.